Hello my dear friends and welcome to my channel. My name is Barbara and today we're going to be looking at Jupiter in Gemini. So this video is for you if you have this particular placement. If you're a cross watcher, welcome as well. Jupiter in our natal charts deals with the area where we might be abundant through, lucky, where we might get wealth through. It's also going to be the area where we learn something. So it's the area of expansion, expanding on that soul level. And then afterward, when you guys learn that thing, you guys might want to go and teach it. It is also the area where we might indulge in, even overindulge in. And also Jupiter, what I've noticed personally is that it's the area where you might be able to push boundaries in. So you tend to be lucky in the sense where it's like you get saved by the bell, or you catch that last train, or whatever it is. You manage to get out of a certain situation versus maybe someone who doesn't have that same placement as you. Let's say you guys were in the same situation, you caught the train, they didn't, unfortunately for them. So this is the overall idea and vibe with Jupiter in a natal chart. Gemini is all about the written or the spoken word. It's all about communication, speaking, writing, sales, marketing, PR, social media sometimes. It's going to be the short distance travel, the little trips here and there, switching up the schedule sometimes in this way, going to like local places. It's all about the local community, friends, and it's also all about learning in its own way. So the Gemini energy, because it is ruled by Mercury, it's very fast. Okay, so it's learning a lot of things all the time, learning this thing while learning that thing, attempting to maybe do everything at once. An ideal situation for a Gemini person would be to be able to do multiple things at once. So when you guys have the Jupiter in the sign of Gemini, Jupiter is expanding this particular area for you guys. So it's going to be expanding the area of the written or the spoken word. So when you guys engage in that particular area, you will make maybe money through these things. So maybe being a speaker or a writer. Usually though, what I have noticed with the Gemini energy, it is shorter form just because they have other things to do. Doesn't mean you guys wouldn't be good at long form writing. Obviously depends on the rest of your natal chart, but because they are all about kind of capturing a big thought and putting it into maybe one sentence, that's very much that Gemini energy, especially when you have Jupiter in here, because Jupiter is that philosopher, it's the higher mind, is the higher learning. So Jupiter in Gemini would maybe be able to take a huge concept, a huge philosophy, and narrow it down in a sentence. So maybe the everyday person understands, or maybe kind of really bring it down to a level that maybe the everyday person would be able to understand. Something that might be very complex in terms of spirituality and philosophy and all these types of things. The Gemini energy could kind of really summarize it very quickly into a sentence. They're very good at learning a lot of information. And I'm really trying not to use the word watered down, because it's not that they're watering the information down. They're just making it more accessible to the maybe everyday person or person who isn't maybe as, let's say, spiritually open and wise, especially in terms of the Jupiter philosophies and higher mind. The Jupiter and Gemini energy is going to be very good at kind of delivering the information maybe clear, concise, fast, because Gemini always kind of has something else to do. That's the thing with the Gemini energy. So when you have Jupiter and Gemini, definitely you're going to be blessed in the area of having multiple projects going on. Maybe you're working on this thing and then you're working on that thing. What I will say for Gemini energy though is that they do tend to drop projects. Obviously depends on the rest of your natal charts, but because they are prone to dropping projects, I would say at least try to master things maybe to like an 80% mark. So you can kind of have this thing going on and then you can have this other thing going on. And at least when you've mastered this thing, you can maybe start the next thing, because Gemini energy tends to start this, do this at 30%, then start this other thing because it's more interesting, do that thing at 30%, then drop this thing. Oh my gosh, that thing is really interesting and that thing's really interesting. And then through all of this, nothing's actually getting done. So that's my only recommendation. Obviously you guys have the free will to do whatever you guys want, but overall that Gemini energy is incredibly good at multitasking when everything is kind of rolling at a higher capacity versus starting this, dropping it, starting that thing, starting this thing at the same time, dropping it. Oh my gosh, I forgot I was doing this project, or I forgot I was doing this thing, or this thing is more interesting and that thing is more interesting. So just something to keep in mind, because you guys will make abundance through anything that is Gemini like. With that being said, you guys can be blessed when it comes to social media, maybe teaching all these things that you guys have learned. The Gemini energy is more so like the day-to-day type of teaching, even though it is Jupiter is higher mind and spiritual wisdom. The Gemini energy overall is more so day-to-day types of teaching. It's more so, again, all about local and local community. Now, another thing that I will say, because Jupiter does expand the area that it's in, whether it's positive or negative, that's another thing that can take place. Because Gemini is a mental sign, you guys could spend a lot of time thinking and overthinking, and then Jupiter could be expanding this for you guys in a negative sense as well, where you're just in your crown and you're just overthinking. And the struggle overall with Gemini energy is that they tend tend to see things from a lot of different perspectives, and then they themselves tend to come into like an internal conflict because they see so many things from so many perspectives. There is definitely such thing as knowing too much information. I know that for a Jupiter and Gemini person, that might kind of be like, no, there's no way that you'll know too much information. But the way that I see it is like, if you're not applying the information and you're learning all these things and there isn't an outlet for it, it's kind of just taking up mental space, and it's just taking up space in your head. And the question is like, for what exactly? Like, why is it there? So it's like the Jupiter and Gemini person has to find an outlet. This is why Gemini talks, because of the fact that they think a lot, because of the fact that there's so much going on in that mental space. An outlet for them is to speak and to get these things out, or to write. Writing is always very beneficial, whether you guys are doing it for another person or like a book or like a job or a career, or whether you guys are just writing in terms of journaling and getting all of your thoughts out. It's going to be very important for Jupiter and Gemini people is to have the outlet for all their thoughts, because otherwise you're just going to be in the crown, and then like I mentioned, you could just go into overthinking, and then it's kind of like, why is all this information accumulated if you're not going to do anything with that information? So Jupiter and Geminis are probably prospering during the times that we're living in, especially with the internet and phones and the information being so accessible to you guys. You guys are definitely prospering during this time because you guys are learning so many things. You're learning a lot of things, but once again, you want to apply it in one way, shape, or form, and then Jupiter will bless you guys. It'll bless you with abundance, bless you guys have your own business. It'll bless you in terms of having clients and more clients come through. It will bless you in the area of wealth and money. You guys can make money through all these Gemini-like things. So overall, this is the area where you guys are going to be abundant in. Keep in mind not to go into the overindulgence aspect of it, because Jupiter could overindulge in the area that it's in. So I find that for Jupiter and Gemini, you guys could overindulge in the information area, where it's like you're just like at information overload. Maybe your whole system is fried because you just have taken in so much information, and again, there's no outlet. So for people who are in their crown a lot, or in their mind, or like in that overthinking energy, my recommendation, obviously anyone can do what they want at the end of the day, but like my recommendation for these people is, yes, having that outlet, so writing or speaking, but also kind of engaging in the physical plane and knowing that you guys can maybe go into just like really researching and learning all these things. And then maybe when you guys are with yourselves, you guys just like go into this energy where it's like you're just too much in the mind, which is really interesting, because it's like a way to ground this is to interact with the physical plane and interact with the physical reality and really have those physical experiences. And then it's interesting because also Gemini is that sign of friendship. So you guys are going to have a lot of friends, and you guys are going to have probably a lot of these physical experiences already. These are probably already things that do take place, whether you guys are aware of it or not. So with that being said, the area where you guys could push the boundary in could be in anything that is Gemini-like. So for example, for you guys could get away with maybe studying for like multiple tests on the same day. For example, I've been using a lot of like studying examples in these Jupiter videos, but it could be something like this. Like for you guys, maybe you guys had other things to do, like more interesting things to do with your time, and then it's like all of a sudden you have to just study for all these exams, and you're in school, and it ends up all being on the same day, and you guys could get away with that. Versus maybe someone who doesn't have that particular Jupiter placement, they maybe wouldn't prosper in this area, or maybe they wouldn't be lucky in this particular area where it's like they cram everything into one day. But it's like the Gemini energy is kind of like a computer, right? It's like I'm focusing on this and I'm focusing on that, and I'm seeing like, I don't even know, I'm seeing this like vision of a person just like typing and doing everything fast, and papers are flying everywhere, and it's an interesting vision because like the computer that they have is like from like the 1990s. Anyways, I digress. So that is the overall vibe here. Okay, so you guys can get away with this, get away with certain things in this particular area. You guys probably already do this without realizing, but keep in mind, you guys don't want to overindulge. You guys don't want to go too much into that Gemini crown town energy. I call it crown town, but for you guys, it's like crown town in a sense where it's like information. So you guys are learning all these things, all this information, and sometimes it has no outlet. Sometimes you guys can find yourselves conflicted. I find that sometimes Gemini energy can be even more indecisive and conflicted versus, let's say, Libra energy, or like indecision versus Libra energy, because you can really see things from all perspectives. Like you really can see how this can make sense, and then you can see how that can make sense. And then if it's two opposing beliefs, well, then it can be struggle, because it's like also at the same time, let's say if we look at manifestation, for you guys, it's like Jupiter's going to expand whatever your belief is. If your belief is this thing, it'll expand it. But then if you have a conflicting belief, Jupiter's kind of like, okay, well, what are we expanding here? Nothing actually ends up coming through. Maybe your manifestation doesn't end up coming through. But overall, this energy is going to be very good at teaching, whether you guys are teaching directly or indirectly. Maybe it's through just who you guys are as people. You guys are just teaching people maybe a certain way of life, because Jupiter is the philosophies. So for you guys, maybe your philosophy is knowledge is power. Having a lot of knowledge is important. You guys are going to be very versatile as people. So you guys are going to know information about this and like the periodic table, and then this thing about biology. And then you guys are going to know like this thing about AI, and like that thing about the fashion industry. Like, it's gonna be a vast variety of knowledge. Jupiter is blessing you guys in this area. Keep in mind, if you guys do engage in it, you guys can make money and abundance as long as you guys are writing or speaking. It's the written or the spoken word. Now, what you guys write about, what you guys speak about, that's the thing here. It's going to be a variety of things. You guys might start off talking about this thing, maybe you do that for a while, and then you move on to this other thing that you guys speak about and talk about. And that's kind of like the nature of the Gemini energy. But keep in mind, you're going to be very, very good multitaskers when you do have things operating once again at that higher capacity. So something that is almost done, you could have that thing rolling and then start maybe the next thing. And then when that thing's almost done, then you can do the other thing. So that is the overall idea with the Jupiter in Gemini energy. So I'm going to wrap up this video here. I do hope you guys enjoyed my video on Jupiter in Gemini. If you did, please do like, share, and subscribe. And I hope you all have a beautiful rest of the day.